Hi, welcome to Discussions of Music, Healing, and Consciousness with your hosts, Chris Noble and Bill Protzmann. Today's episode, we're discussing the intention behind music. What does it really mean when you set a very specific intention for your musical performance or your musical listening experience? What are those experiences and how do they improve or change with the intention set behind the music? We also discuss experiences that both Bill and myself have had listening to music as well as performing our music with specific intentions set behind those performances or listening experiences. We'll also discuss a little bit about the music industry, performing as an authentic musician, and much, much more, as always, in these open discussions here on Discussions of Music, Healing, and Consciousness.
You know, I just want to follow up because I have now, since we talked about it, been trying to figure out my song for moving the car on street sweeping day. And I have not yet got a song that I really work with. The best one I've got is Baby, You Can Drive My Car. Remember that old thing?
Yes, I do.
and as long as it's working, it's fine because I didn't get a ticket this week. So
That's good. That's good.
But you know what? I'm realizing that it's the intention that matters. I mean, even if you tell yourself, I can't forget to move the car. But if you holistically connect that to anything musical with that intention, it's going to work, right? Even if your song is Happy Birthday. Pick, the most banal thing you can ever think of. Doesn't matter. If the intention is there, it's going to go.
Oh, yeah.
And so maybe Baby, You Can Drive My Car is the right song.
Because is there really a wrong song? If you've got the right intention behind it, I think like you're saying that brings up a really good point of, whatever the intention is behind what you're listening to makes all the difference. Like, I think we've talked about in a previous episode where there's a world-class violinist performing at a subway and he's got a Stradivarius, the most incredible violin on the planet. And he's one of the most incredible players, on the planet. And everyone walks by and doesn't notice because the intention behind it is different. When I say intention, I guess it's more the intention of everyone listening. Their intention is not to listen to world-class classical music. Their intention is to get to work in the rat race of life. And they're so consumed with that they're not going to see or hear the beautiful music.
It's a total setup, right? You could do that and say, and look, nobody listened, right? But normal people are not going to stop and listen to a world-class violinist playing a Stradivarius in the subway. Yeah. That's just too far out there. People who are in the subway are going to stop and listen if they've got time, to something that is like attention grabbing and makes them forget everything else that's in their thing, except waiting for the train, which, sadly, Joshua Bell on a Stradivarius playing Rachmaninoff or something is not going to do. Yes.
But I think it's like, and then the funny thing is that he'll go and sell out a massive concert hall for $60 to $100 plus a seat. And difference is the people. So I know for myself, on sort of oddly enough, on a business level, I started to shy away from doing, let's say, quote unquote, free events because I started to realize, that when people didn't pay money for something, it had nothing to do with the money. It had everything to do with the intention. Once they put that intention, and I will spend that money, whether it's $2, whether it's $50, whatever it is, that means that they're like, well, I spent the money, but there's a deeper level, which is like, well, I made that intention. I made that decision to go to this concert. So I'm going to go. I spent the money. I spent the energy to do it. So I'm now going to go and I'm going to take it in and I'm going to be more present because as more materialistic as it sounds, the motivation is, well, I spent the damn money. I better get my money's worth. Well, that's still an intention. That's still a way to absorb something far more in a present way versus, oh, it's a freebie. I'll see if I like it. You're kind of passive, right?
And, with respect, so Jason Mraz got to start playing coffee shops in San Diego. And, there's an intention in there, right? It's not an intention to be a coffee shop musician. It's an intention to get in front of people with a gift. And I think that intention rewarded him over all the other people who are singer-songwriters playing in coffee shops in an astronomical way, right? That's incredible.
Yeah.
And there's a corollary to this conversation, which is what value do we as artists place on our work, right? And I know I've given away a lot of stuff too, especially live concerts. I'll go and play for people in memory care, for example, which I did in school, and you know how satisfying that is.
Yes.
So there's a two-way street on that doesn't involve money. I just got off a phone call with the guy. We were talking about valuing what we do. And money is useful, right? Because it's commercial, lets us do things. And money is also under attack. Cryptocurrencies, the value of the dollar, whatever, all of that. So there's an additional value to it. It's that non-monetary value, the satisfaction that you get, or the accolades that you receive. But more importantly, what's happening in the audience? Do they feel that they got value for what happened there? And was that value not measured in money? Was that value measured in satisfaction or peace or excitement or whatever that you get, from coming out of a concert? So those things in that currency, I think artists are ahead of the curve.
Oh yeah.
And we're able to say, this is what we do. And it's way more than a paycheck. On the other hand, to all the artists who are out there trying to make it go and, playing for $15 an hour in a coffee shop, if you can get $15 an hour, or playing for nothing but tips, let's change the value of the equation, right? Let's encourage people to understand what effect the music is having on them, what effect the art hanging in the museum is having on them. I mean, if you knew that you were able to stand in front of a Picasso for an unlimited amount of time, what would you pay for that experience, right? People don't understand what standing in front of a Picasso could really be, or
Absolutely.
Listening to Joshua Bell in the subway could really be, right? And if they did, I think the value equation would shift. But as leaders, we've got to help lead people there. Difficult thing, because showing up and saying, no, I charge $5,000 for a concert, when you're not one of the 40 people in the world who's making way more than that per concert. That middle ground is like, it's a wide open, it's a big gap. We could flow into that gap with such a convincing argument. Look at music, it changes you. I mean, you want to just hear music in the background? Listen on your phone, you can do that. But if you're into the live experience and you understand what's happening to you when you're in that experience, $20 to be on the grass at the back of the Hollywood Bowl or wherever you go is nothing for that. I mean, if you had the money, you could value that experience as a life-changing, transformational moment, man. Listening to Tony Bennett live, for example, right? Did you see the 60 Minutes? That cat is like, he has Alzheimer's in a way that prevents him from doing most normal things, but he can still perform.
Isn't that incredible?
I mean, I would give anything that I had to be able to be in a room with him, and it's never happened in my life, to be able to be there for that moment. Right. And here I'm just rambling. I'm just going on. But
no, I love it.
People, listeners, whoever, musicians, if you're out there, art's been free for so long. And the value of art, at least in these United States and perhaps in Canada as well, it's much different than if you were to go for Africa, for example, where music is part of everyday life.
Oh my God.
And every village has someone whose job is to sing the songs of all the people in the village. Like, that's their job, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how they get paid for that, but that's an important role. Really important role.
And it's valued that way. When I'm other places in the world and I say I'm a musician, in North America, it's funny, and I'm sure all the artists can relate, where you say whatever your art form is, let's say it's at a dinner table conversation, and in North America, it's all like, oh, that's nice. Like, that's super cool. Awesome. What do you do to make a living though?
Right.
And there's always that question, because of course you couldn't possibly be making a living as an artist. That's ridiculous. And that's just the mindset. That's what I've grown up thinking, for crying out loud, because that's the conditioning that we've all been through. Right. And then you go somewhere like, even in Europe, it doesn't even have to be Africa, because I know even just in places like Europe, you say, oh, I'm an artist. And there's a much different level of respect and a much different reaction, which is amazing. What are you working on? Yeah. And there's no, you don't get into the, that's a nice side hustle, Chris, but what are you doing for real money? Yeah. I'm like, this is my real money, and it's that perception, I think, that people have in different cultures, where they value and understand the arts on a much more fundamental level, where they're like, this is just as important as a doctor, as a lawyer, as accountants. Those professions are very important professions, and rightfully so, have a lot of respect clout and get compensated financially in a more fair way. Why aren't the arts, and this is a huge discussion because you can go down that rabbit hole as to, well, really, why are the arts not valued in that same the monetary way, and why is it sometimes valued more in other cultures versus others? At the end of the day, though, it's what I find really interesting is, even in the Western culture, let's say North America, when people initially think of money, or think of music, let's just say as an example, as a career where you'll never make any money, but then you allow that person to have a musical experience with you. So this has happened to me before, where someone will ask me at a dinner party or something, what do I do? Oh, that's nice. What else do you do? No, this is what I do. Oh, interesting. You actually make a living? Yeah, I can. Oh, interesting. Night progresses. Maybe I play my piano at some point in that night. And then they get to really experience the music firsthand from that live performance. And because it's an intimate concert, and I can really connect with those people that were very doubtful in the beginning, not their fault, not any animosity, just the way it is. Right.
Yeah.
And at the end of the night, they'll come up to me, because this has happened on several occasions, and they'll be like, I don't know what I was saying before about, not having any, that was such an insanely valuable experience. I felt myself shift and heal in that moment. I pay doctors to do less than what I just got right now.
Yeah.
And so, it is valuable, and I would pay anything to experience that again. I'm like, great.
So what if all the musicians in the world had that as their core reason, and not only owned it, but offered it? Not like, scientific and all that evidence and blah, 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 but just saying before every song, or before, a set or something, by the way, have you thought about what this music actually does to you when you hear it? And then start playing. Just to give the invitation, not some scientific evidence based on blah, blah, blah with Alzheimer's and you need blah, 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 and just laying out all the things. And unless you have Alzheimer's, it doesn't matter. But just saying to the general world, wouldn't more people have that experience that you've just described, right?
I think so.
And, that's a great invitation, because it's an invitation for a bigger intention than just, Chris is going to play the piano, Bill's going to play ragtime, which is what the family asks me to play every time we get together.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't mind, because I like playing ragtime. But it's bigger than that. If the symphony conductor were to turn around, or Bono were to turn around to the audience, after an amazing set, and say, hey, by the way, you have any idea what's going on to you, like neurologically, physiologically right now?
Right.
Have you thought about that? When after this concert, go figure that out, right? Go experiment with it. Do your own research, to quote a phrase. But what kind of power would that give people to become more engaged in their own healing, their own journey?
Just to know, it's like, oh, by the way, every cell in your body has physiologically shifted throughout this performance. FYI.
Yeah, just by the way, just in case. And then hit a really great, really, an amazing high note, and say, now, by the way, that just did this to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Quick demonstration. We have this great burden as musicians. And as I'm saying that, I can hear not one, but like 2 car alarms going off in the background. Hopefully it's getting it onto the track, because it's making my point.
Yeah.
Oh man, I should walk outside. It's making my point, because sound affects us. And it's a big responsibility to make sound, not just for yourself, but for one other person. I mean, I often ask people, have you ever had someone sing a love song to you? Like, even somebody you don't know, or don't love, or whatever. Have you ever had a personal experience of somebody singing a love song as if it was for you, right? Wow, that will wake up your heart. Right? You've never felt that. And unless it's intentional, but it's just offering the intention. I mean, I've goofed around with people in music all my life, and that's a crazy intention too. Like I play ragtime, so I get people to stop time, and teaching them how to do it, and then watching them all do it, like a room full of people, hundreds of people, all stop timing while you play rag on the piano. It's like, that's crazy. But the kind of entrainment and joy and all of the stuff that goes with that, And the fact that you could go home and do that for yourself, you don't need me. You go home, put on a record, and stop time if that's your thing. You don't need, it's nice to be a part of that. And it helps pay the bills when we are, right, Chris? It's like that's how we show up in the world. But offering that experience and saying, hey, audience of people who like to play the kazoo, take that home, give one to your kids. And anytime you want to have a silly experience of cohesion and enjoyment and entrainment, grab your kazoo and put on some crazy music, whatever it is, kazoo with it, Yeah. What an incredible way to find behavioral health.
Oh my God. I mean, like, and the funny thing is for the musicians out there, it is karmic in the sense that all that stuff that you're doing, it comes back. And so you don't even have to go out anymore, I'm finding, and say, hey guys, like, let's think about and talk about how valuable music is. And then whatever that value is, you can feel free to e-transfer me that after the show or whatever. Now that can totally work. But what I've been finding is that when you really output, when you start, I've really had to remove my ego from my music career. Yeah. And I will definitely say honestly that it was pretty more involved than I ever really thought. I'd say for the last decade of my career, and only in the last maybe several years have I really removed the ego and have now come at my music from a service standpoint in terms of how can this serve humanity, myself as well as much as just anybody else. And now that I'm coming at it with that perspective, for example, I played a show in Kelowna, British Columbia a couple of weeks ago. I think I mentioned this to you.
How'd it go?
Show. It was fantastic. And one of the reasons why it was so amazing, one of the reasons why is because the performer I was performing with, Tennyson King, he's a folk artist, kind of like Jack Johnson meets John Mayer kind of vibe.
Perfect. Right.
But he's, it's poppy, it's catchy. However, his music is very intentional in the sense that it's about human connection almost always. And he's such a connector on stage. So my job is to hold the fort down musically while he runs around and engages with the audience. Well, guess what? Like, we had a digital tip jar and a legitimate tip jar going, where there's now like QR codes that people can scan and send tips, which is brilliant, I think.
Yeah.
And, not much activity at the beginning of the set. And as we continue to engage the audience, and when I say engage, I mean, we're getting them to sing. He's playing songs that, they're his originals. No one's heard them at this show though. And so he's teaching them the lyrics in real time and singing along these choruses with very uplifting, empowering lyrics. And this is happening on multiple songs. He's getting people up to dance. One song, he's always able to find someone in the audience who's got a birthday, makes it all about them and their birthday in a really fun way. I mean, we're talking is this like a monumental thing? No, it's just basic audience engagement, but he's so gifted at it that at the end of the show, people are running up to just tip, because the appreciation's there. We didn't ask for it. Not one point did we ever ask. We just gave. But we gave with a very particular intention and gave it with a sense of respect for our craft. Like, we know we're very gifted musicians and we know that we give a lot in our performances. And I think now that we're at that stage in our careers, it gets reciprocated because we have that frequency, that energy of that, I respect my work and my craft, and I'm excited to give it to everyone today. And, just reciprocity, you give back what you feel is good. And it's always going to be, the show we played was not even a high paying show. And we took it strategically because we're like, no, it's going to be a good audience. And we know this is more like an expansion of the project where more ears can hear it. So long story short, the venue's like, yeah, got to have you guys back. We're going to have you play for hundreds of people now and much more things. We're going to pay you way more. And again, did we ask for it? No. We put out that intention and we put out that energy, and that's how it came back to us, which I think is really interesting.
That's an amazing form of conscious investment. I don't know if anybody calls it that yet, but I'm listening to you talk, and I'm thinking about how you normally invest in stocks or mutual funds. If you want to be safe, you buy a bank CD or whatever.
Yeah.
But the investment and it's a dual investment, like the investment of your time and energy was rewarded with money.
Yes.
But the conscious investment of intention, whatever that is in that box, but it's real. It's something that you decided ahead of time. You were going to do this for these reasons, right? And to be of service and whatever, all the stuff was rewarded. doubly, right? Not only did you get additional paying gig out of it, you also got an audience engagement.
Yeah.
That was significant,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you have to work for that because people don't necessarily show up with the same intention that you bring.
Exactly.
But once you offer it to them, they align very quickly, especially with music, because music just greases everything, right? So that all of a sudden you're in the zone and everybody's in the zone, right? And that's the beautiful return on that investment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it pays off. But I mean, look how I'm watching Chris as he's telling the story, everybody. So we're actually on Zoom. We can see each other. And I'm watching Chris tell the story and he is lit up. Like, this is one happy guy. He's talking about this concept. And, we've all played those gigs where there's one person in the audience and they aren't paying attention. So as I'm watching Chris tell the story, you can tell how fun it was just by watching his face, right? You can see that joy and the connection that happened and the way we feel as musicians after a concert like that is all over Chris's face when he's telling the story, right? And that's the real payoff, because hello, pandemic-ridden world. Isn't that what we want? Right? Isn't that what we want?
Yeah.
And why not be in that business? It's not the music business. It's like the music is just the vehicle.
Yes.
And there we are. I mean, you could have been doing that as you have, sitting around a campfire in the middle of a forest someplace with a bunch of friends, and everybody's singing, and participating. And it turns out music is the vehicle. It works there too, right? The unexpected gift of music.
Oh, it's incredible. Like I remember visiting my family this summer back in Ontario, and I had my guitar with me as like my my little healing tool, really, more than anything. Like at a particular family event, I could, if you start to just feel things get a little stale or stale or
political,
or definitely political, and I'm almost never on the same side as most of my family, and that's fine. That's totally okay. I don't care. I love them nevertheless. And
by the way, yes, family, I do too. Just to be clear about that.
Bill loves his family just as much as Chris.
Yes,
and we love our families very much.
So many of them don't see things. But anyway, no judgment. You were saying?
No, it's no judgment at all. I love them to death. And one of the things I love to do with my family, despite any of the differences, is play music, because it just completely transcends all that. And at the end of the day, we're like, what were we arguing about again? I can't remember. Right. We just played a couple of tunes. I had a blast. We're singing, we're playing together. There's that synergy, that symbiosis that happens when you create music together. There's just the joy of experiencing the music. My mom, she usually won't participate, but she always wants to come into the room that we're playing in, and she just sits and reads, just to absorb it. Right.
Yeah.
And then me and my dad are playing or something, you know what I mean? And, or whatever the situation is. And I just found this summer specifically, I was a lot more consciously aware of how it would just equalize everyone in the room. All of a sudden you could be polarized on all these topics, and then boom, you play a song and we're all singing together. We're all singing the same song. We're all having a blast. We're all enjoying ourselves. We're playing. We're all like our inner child we're all kids again, no matter what our age is.
Yeah. And
it's just a beautiful thing. It really, really, really brings people together. And, for the listeners out there, if you're not a musician, it really doesn't, like Bill wisely said, it's just a conduit. It's just a medium that we use to connect people. Film, same effect. Art, same effect. Being a very gifted storyteller, speaker, same effect. I just recently watched some stand-up comedy, hilarious and incredibly connecting, same effect.
Yes.
So there's many art forms. You don't even have to be in the arts. You can be an entrepreneur and be making these. You can be an event planner and create incredible conscious events. Or it's endless. It's obviously infinite. And I think it goes back to, like you said, it's the intention. What's the intention behind this? And that kind of makes all the difference. Because for me, just one last thought that just came to mind. For me, like what I'm remembering from my old self was my intention. If I really, really, really am honest with myself, a lot of the time throughout all my 20s was, I want to be a rock star. And I do want to be famous. And while I want it for a lot of good reasons to do good in the world, there's still an underlying ego, which is I want that success, that ambiguous, whatever the hell that even means, success, because I want to prove my teachers wrong, and I want to prove some of my family wrong, and
some of my friends so much alike.
but I have to let go of that, man, because like that was my biggest thing holding me back was my ego. And it kept me from collaborations with really amazing people too. So I think for those listening to, it's just like, it's always good to check in with that ego. It's good. Egos, we have it for a reason. It's okay to have a healthy ego, but I think it's good to ask yourself, like, but why am I really pursuing this? Is it to, what is it? Is it a material surface layer accolade thing, which is fine? Or is it something deeper and more profound? Because those deeper and more profound reasons, which is like, I just need to perform for people. I need them to connect through this. That's a very different thing. And I think that's why I'm seeing different results, I guess, as a cause to that.
There's probably a direct relationship between ego and earning.
Yeah.
And if you're not earning, check your ego, right? I'm a big fan of Liz Gilbert, and my wife recently read a book that Liz wrote for. My wife was studying in an English course at Arizona State University, and one of the things that jumped out about this was that Liz Gilbert said, you should not pursue your art as a career because that takes all the joy out of it and the spontaneity and whatever. And I think for many artists, that's probably true. Like you could really go through an ego death if you put all of your eggs into the art basket. On the other hand, maybe you need an ego death, right, to get to the next level. And it's hard because we're taught as students of music to have control and to be very, specific about things and to actually use the part of us that drives us to make our performance as good as possible. Well, it's the same thing that's driving our ego to be as big as possible. And it's hard to have the one and not the other, but it's possible to have the one and not the other. Start practicing non-attachment and, all of acceptance and all the other things that go along with whatever your ego investment might be. And just realign those so that all of that you-ness is now focused on producing the very best possible thing that you can for someone else. It's not producing it for yourself. It's producing it with the intention to give it, right? To offer it. And that can be challenging. I've gone into places where I felt I wasn't prepared. And you don't take ego into those places. You're like scared, you're going to, and some of that scaredness is butterflies. It's good too, but it's a good reminder that it isn't about who you are. It's about what you can give. Right? And here in the West, we always go to the experts, and we don't feel like we can participate unless we're good enough to play. You've led jam sessions, you know how that works.
Oh yeah.
And there's no need for that. Show up, do what you do. I'm leading this public sing-along, right? I don't sing. But I sing well enough to do this, and I have other qualities that I can use to organize and make it happen and make it fun for people who do have good voices and love to sing, right? And why not, right? It's not about me. It's about offering something that, there's a gap. There are no public sing-alongs in San Diego.
So you're filling that.
So I'm filling one. Who knows if that's necessary, but apparently it's necessary for some people.
Oh, we know it's necessary.
And you and I know it's necessary, right? We know. So yeah, the ego thing is hard, man. It's really hard, Chris. And I think your story of the concert that you gave is a really good one that says that shows how to use your ego properly, right? Yeah. I know that a lot of people out there are going to say, you shouldn't use ego at all, but I think there's a positive side to that. I agree. There's enough awareness in ego, if you can steer it, to make something useful happen. To not, and that useful thing is not putting yourself out in front of the stage and I'm the best and whatever, and look at me. It's this gift that I've been given, that I've nurtured, that I can use is here for you. And I just happen to be the guy who's giving it tonight, right? Or whatever. Right.
It's the part also I find that's like a self-respect and, the ego keeps, for me, like I find part of my ego is like, yeah, Chris, like you are a great musician and, you're definitely here to allow others to experience that and to shift others, to shift consciousness through your music. And, there's a reason you have this skill and this talent. Use it. Just like every single one of us has a variety of skills and talents that we are gifted at the beginning of this life. And it's always the things that we're passionate about, and that could be anything. But when we're in pursuit of those innate gifts that we're all given, that's when we thrive. And that's when we're always happiest. And, I found when I started to do music for the wrong reasons, it would fall out of alignment with why I was given the gift and the talent of music. When I would fall into really trying to hit the corporate side of music and truly treat it like a stereotypical career, which when you're mentioning that, like, don't have music as your career, I think I agree with that on a more metaphorical level,
right?
not necessarily literally.
Not literally, yeah.
And the thing is I did take a break from music for periods of time throughout my 20s. Not long, because it'd be really hard for me from a deep soul love level to give it up that long. I would always kind of come back, but kind of like like a lover that you're always going back to. And that was always music for me. But when I would take those breaks and pursue my other passions like filmmaking and business and entrepreneurship, it would always remind me, though, that, like, okay, you know why it wasn't working, Chris, is because you were treating music too much like not like a business. You want, as an artist and as a musician full time, you have to treat it like a business. However, you're only thinking business, and you're thinking all of the nuts and bolts, left brain, logic minded, monetized kind of things, that you're losing the soul of music. And if you don't have that, then music's nothing without soul. So if you get caught up in the career, you get caught up in the numbers and all that stuff, which I easily did for a lot of time.
Oh, sure.
And, really and how difficult it is to get those numbers, or at least difficult when you're in the wrong mindset to get those numbers. That's when you can fall into music. Really started to, at points for me, really started to feel like a chore, started to feel really heavy, not fun. And that's when I would always take my breaks away from it. It was like, whoa, this is too much.
I think that's what Liz Gilbert was getting at, because you don't want that burden as an artist. It's an artificial, limit, of your ego getting in the way. But the tough thing, of course, as artists, is finding an audience, finding a paying audience, and making that happen. And I suppose commercially, you could say somebody like Thomas Kinkade, the painter of light, was able to do that successfully. On the other hand, that cat painted stuff that is gorgeous, beautiful, far beyond the commercial stuff that he's done, that you can tell obviously comes from the authentic him, versus the other stuff that he was doing, for marketing reasons, to be able to make a living at it, hit it out of the park, that kind of stuff. And living in that bifurcated place, I don't think is a good idea. I feel it's much more healthy for artists to be all or nothing, right? In it, as they're authentic, broken, ego confused, like all of that is part of the art, right? And without those things, you haven't got it. Doesn't matter how much somebody's paying for it. Without those things, it isn't art. I feel, just me. But what Tony Robbins does, I think, is a form of art.
Yeah,
the guy's amazing, and he is the ultimate storyteller. He has such empathy with people. He can pull it together when everything is falling apart. If you haven't seen the movie, I Am Not Your Guru, I think it's out there on Netflix. I'm not sure where it is anymore, but what an amazing, self-effacing, vulnerable way to go behind the scenes on somebody who is so commercial and so successful, and find out that the soul is really there, even though all of the nuts and bolts are incredibly complex, and he has to work so hard to make everything happen. When it comes to Tony going on stage, and that's what we all strive for, right? That moment where everything else doesn't matter, and you step in front of the audience and allow the experience to happen, right? I don't even feel like I'm part of the experience, or that I'm making it happen. I feel more like I'm sort of observing in that moment, right?
Wow.
And that's what we're all after, right? So we all want to join with the audience in that moment, if we're doing it right.
That made me think, Bill, it's just like you're giving me these ideas here. Like, I think Tony's, first of all, he's a performer, like, as much as a lot of, like, his shows are, there's so much music, there's meditation, there's so much going on. It's a real performance. But, before we get to that level and that size where it can feel very daunting, I know for myself, as a recovering perfectionist, and someone who, someone who would always look at the highest achievers and be like, I need to be that or higher, is where I've dialed back to is like, okay, I'll give you an example of what I'm doing now on a much smaller level, but I still feel it's so different than to what I was doing previously, which was more ego driven. And that's putting small concerts now together. I'm actually at the end of November. I've got another collaborator who, Shashila, producing her own original music now. And she's such a gifted vocalist. And I'm going to be performing with her. And we were both talking about this and how, like, I'm personally as well. I'm done with the hustle, and doesn't mean I don't do hard work. I'm done with the hustle and grind aspect of I got to go out and I got to convince a whole bunch of people to go buy my music, come to my shows, whatever the hell it is. I'm done with that.
I will put 3D.
It's so 3D. And I know what going back into that state of like when you can have that very healthy balance with your ego is like, no, I know what I'm worth. And I also know what my intention is, which is to, elevate human consciousness, connect people through music, allow people to heal through music. I know that's my mission. That's always what I'm doing. All I need to do now is focus on my work and then literally just have the right ears and eyes see and hear my music, and they'll do all the other work. And does that mean collaborating with a marketing company? Definitely not necessarily. I literally mean, like, we're going to have a house concert here in my studio where we're going to invite like 15 people over to sit on some cushions and listen to us perform our set before we even go to a venue, because we're going to be very, very, very intentional and specific with those 15 people that we're bringing. They're all going to be people with massive networks that we already know. And they're going to be people who will also resonate with our message, resonate with our kind of vibe of the music and all that. So it's like a hand-picked audience that we know will cause a massive ripple effect outward. And then the opportunities will continue, and they already are, but they will continue to come in versus this, I like the analogy. I've been told this a couple of times. It's instead of, you want to be the lighthouse as an artist. The lighthouse shines its light so bright that all the ships come in from all these different places, right, to this one source of light, versus what I did throughout my last, good God, 20 years of my life, probably, which was be the tugboat. The tugboat goes out, brings something in, goes out, brings something in, goes out, is exhausting.
Yeah, and boring.
And boring and monotonous after a while. And that's why you get frustrated, right?
And it's not about the art anymore. It's about how bigger, better, faster your tugboat is.
You're spending more time on the tugboat. You're spending more time on your gas and your maintenance than you are at any point developing what you're really supposed to be doing, which is your art, whatever that is.
Don't tell anybody, because pretty soon there'll be people who are branding themselves as conscious marketers and using the lighthouse analogy and the organic, hand-picked audience. But that feels so good.
Doesn't it?
Right?
Yeah.
Versus grinding it out. It's like, oh man.
I can't. I'm just done with it.
It's exhausting.
It's
and
exhausting.
I'd rather, I have no trouble hard work and tiredness.
Me too.
Like you said,
Yeah.
But I want to work in a way that is skillful. It isn't just turning the crank or making the flywheel spin faster. I was talking to somebody today, and he said, "Bill, how do you grow your business?" And I said, "Well, I grow my business by helping people like you understand and use the concepts of music care. I don't have to certify you. I don't have to, you have to take my training. If you find all this on your own, like I did, great, no problem. But I just want people to know that there's intelligence behind the power of music. It's not some woo-woo thing,
No.
And that you can use it and do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's being the lighthouse. And hopefully that improves their business, right? In a way that is far beyond anything that I could have imagined or dreamed or taught or, that guessed.
And we know it does, because it shifts you on such a deep level.
Yeah.
And what I've learned from business is it's got nothing to do with the extremities and the exterior material things, like even just like branding and marketing, all those terms. I'm like, I look at it at a much higher level now, where it's like, what is the soul behind this business? Like, what is the purpose? Are you actually here to serve, or are you specifically here to make money? And there is a very big difference. If you're out serving in whatever way that is, providing a really important product for people, or again, another service like music care, where teaching people how they can empower themselves and heal themselves through music in their own lives, like whatever it is, that just gets reciprocated in an energy form. And that's what we call in this third dimensional reality money. That's all that is. And it's just a byproduct of all the amazing, vibrations and frequencies you're putting out there with your intention of your business. And that's where, again, when these businesses resonate with people, they go viral. And you don't need any marketing. And there's so many examples. Doesn't waste of time to go down them. There's so many examples of businesses that do blow up overnight because they resonate with people. And it's the message and the intention behind the business. You get a couple of the right eyeballs and then they shoot it out to their massive networks. And then boom, you truly are that overnight success. And no overnight success is, of course, happens overnight, but it happens in terms of people seeing it. That can happen overnight.
That can happen overnight.
100%.
And it's, with great respect to all the marketers out there, and I know a lot of them and they're amazing.
Yes.
It's really impossible to teach somebody how to do a viral video.
Yeah.
It's just, you can look at it. You can get the book, Talk Like TED. Okay. So you want to give a TEDx talk, get the book, follow the instructions. On the other hand, there are people who are breaking all those rules, who ought to be on the TED stage and won't go because it's not about that. Right. For them, it's not about that. I mean, Zig Ziglar comes to mind. He was gone before TED started. Right.
Okay.
But what an inspiring guy. It doesn't matter if you're interested in selling more or whatever. You'd go to hear Zig Ziglar because he was an incredible storyteller. And it was just being in the room, right? Like Tony Robbins, being in the room, like Tony Bennett, being in the room. It doesn't matter. I saw Dr. John perform maybe 3 times in my life. I don't know just why. It just worked out. I saw him. And one of those was with Leon Russell. They did a combined show, right? And both of them are gone now. And it just felt incredible to be in the room with him, with them. Like there was some gift of their life that they were giving to all of us that evening that was beyond the music and beyond whether they hit all the right notes, and beyond all of that, there was this monumental cultural icon in the room. And these are cats that have played in front of 50,000 people. How big is the biggest stadium you can imagine? Like they've been in that.
Yeah.
And you're just so grateful to be there.
It goes again. It's a really good point, Billy. Like you go beyond the music with people like that, where when it really comes down, and this transcends music, right? When it comes down to people truly being in their passion, truly living out their life purpose, which is the same thing. And purposes, okay, we're multifaceted people who don't have to always get stuck into one direction too. Yeah. But regardless, when you're in that and you're giving that, people, it's just like honesty and authenticity. You can't fake that. People, they know you're BSing them, or they know when you're being real with them, and they know when you're being authentic. And so these people, when they come out and they're just nothing but authentic and they're so genuine, and they clearly love what they do, they love communicating that with everybody. I mean, you pick up on all of that before they even hit a note. And then after they've gone through that beautiful whatever concert they've done, you're just left there with such just that indescribable, incredible feeling of love and connection. I remember seeing a Flaming Lips concert. I've seen them a couple of times now in concert. Phenomenal psychedelic rock band. And they are so good. Specifically, the lead singer, Wayne Coyne, is so gifted at immediate audience connection, immediate vulnerability, and just joy, love, joy, love, like blasting you the entire night. Yeah. Where it's just like, we're all, and like the crowds typically are quite eclectic, like a very mixed group of people from all walks of life typically go to their shows because they're all coming together on love, universal love, and just that deep human consciousness connection. And it's just literally projected in every possible way from their shows. And they spend a lot of money on their props and on their performances every show. They don't have to. They definitely don't have to now. They still do, because it's not about the money at that stage for them. It's all about intention, connection, love, all that good stuff.
That's why it's worth paying $500,
And I would anytime to see a band like that, to have an experience like that. I mean, I paid lots of money to go to Egypt and have that experience. And it's just the same thing as paying to go to see an incredible concert. It takes you somewhere. You may as well go on a damn trip. It's like a vacation for your soul.
Yeah. Yeah. And gosh, so important to change the way that the masses think about this, because chasing the dollar and all of that could be the wrong chase. I've heard, I can't think of any right now, but we've all heard the stories of people who were doing this thing in the corporate world, and then they pivoted and they did a thing in the nonprofit world that was so much more aligned with who they are and blah, 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 and all of that, right? They really found their home when they took the profit motive out of the game.
Yeah.
And that's the point I want to make, is that's a conscious shift.
Yeah.
I know other people that start out in nonprofit and stay there all their life, and people who start out in public service and stay there all their life, and that's fine too. But there's this conscious shift away from the dollar to what would we call it? The non-dollar reward.
Well, it's a heart-based or a consciousness-based thing. It's karma. It's like a different currency, I guess.
Yeah, it's changing the currency. That's right. Yeah, it's changing the currency, and that's so satisfying for people that way. I mean, I know people who've worked in the nonprofit world for their entire career not because it was for the money. They knew they weren't getting paid what they were worth, because of the impact. And maybe that's a good model for artists and musicians, where we do this not for the money, but for the impact.
And you can monetize the impact, and you can still have all of those money, financial rewards, and that abundance. You can absolutely have that. It just can't be the sole reason or the foundational reason that you're doing what you're doing. Because I find typically when people drop out of like, okay, you know what? I'm not doing this for the money. I'm doing this because I ultimately love it. Yes, I can treat it as a business. Yes, I can take this seriously and still make this a very big part of my life. But let's take the money out. Let's just be doing this for the love of it. Well, typically once that, of course, starts to happen is when you start making more money at that craft. Almost always I see that, because you get out of your own way. You take down that incredible pressure that you don't even realize you're putting on yourself. And then all of a sudden, things and opportunities just start to fall into your lap, and you're like, what the hell is happening? And I'm definitely making more money at music now than I have in the past. And I don't even know how much, because I'm not really quite keeping track of it yet. And that's fine, because it's just like right now it feels like a beautiful ride down this pretty cool river. And I got an epic kayak, and I'm just navigating.
Going with the flow. Protzmann with the assist, Noble for the goal.
Yay!
Right? I teed that up and you took it, and it was perfect.
Nice.
And yes, why not have it all?
Why not?
Right?
We're allowed to. It's okay.
Somebody, I don't know who it was, said, if you have a big enough thing, the world will beat a path to your door to consume what you've got, or take your offer, or experience your service, or whatever it is, right? And this one we're talking about, people, is profound. It's nothing less than transformational. It's healing, it's consciousness. It's all of that too. So all the woo, but this is a right in the gut, it's right to the heart kind of thing.
Yeah.
That we're doing here, and every one of us as a human being can do it. Like that love song, singing love. Have you ever sung a lullaby to your child? Right? Do that. Experience that. Do it. It's going to be, they'll probably not remember if they're a toddler or an infant or something like that, but do that for yourself, right? And see what it's like to sing what's in your heart for someone else. And if you get to receive that, see what it's like to receive that. Tell your loved one who can sing that you want to hear them sing the most meaningful song you can think of, right, for you, and experience that. And it's not hard. And it doesn't matter if you're not a great singer. I'm a terrible singer, and I've sung the lullaby for my kids, and I have yet to sing my wife a love song, though.
Ooh, so I've been making Bill.
She sung for me, but I have yet to sing for her.
Ooh,
so
okay.
There it is, Barker.
There's the challenge for yourself.
There's the challenge.
I'll have to sing. I've sang one for friends. I've sang love songs before to people. So now, I don't think I've ever sung anything like that for my parents, though. So maybe that's something I could do.
Oh my gosh.
Reverse the rules a bit. Yeah.
I know we'll have a conversation about this at some point, but I've played for people who are at end of life, and in part of or ensembles that do that, and not in the hospital, but people who are terminally ill with cancer or something. And we've come together to offer them music that's important to them. And that is such an amazing experience. There's nothing quite like knowing that you got to be part of the final journey, of a loved one. It's a different feeling, but I think there's an importance in recognizing these moments, these gateway moments, and being able to offer our gifts in them, whether it's poetry or music or art or just being present, which is what most of us do.
We all have our gifts. We all have gifts, every single one of us, and everyone's creative. I don't care if you're in the arts or you're in business or whatever it is. We're all creative because we're human. It's just part of how we are. We're creative beings. And I think it's about time we stop getting in our own way. It's really, yes, society creates a lot of obstacles, but ultimately it's us that build them and keep them in front of ourselves, and don't, build ladders over top of them, or just ultimate ways to dissolve them altogether. Because I know for myself personally, I've always been the biggest obstacle in my way for anything in terms of my career or any other part of my life. And so now staying out of my own way, which is a lot of part of that ego and expectations and pressures and stuff. And just know that ultimately, if you love it and you enjoy it, that joy and that organic expansion of following a passion like that is just going to ultimately continue to lead to more and more opportunities. And instead of having this grandiose idea of what it means to be successful and what it means to be this rock star or whatever it is in your profession, maybe allow the universe or life to carve out that perfect situation for you, and you just basically steer the boat down the river, but you ultimately don't even know where it's going to go. But it's going to go somewhere pretty awesome. And that's part of the fun, is the unexpected twists and turns of life, right?
And let's hope it along with a challenge. If you're listening to this, here's your challenge. Sing a love song to someone that you care for, and then comment and tell us what the song was and what the response was, and just tell the story of the experience in a few words, because that's a cool intention.
That's an awesome intention. I love it. Let's leave it at that then. Because I have to run off to a meditation now.
Run to a meditation.
I'm going to go run to a meditation.
Stop when you're there.
Yes. I'll make sure I don't keep running.
Thank you for listening in on our conversation, and for taking time to show your appreciation with a like, share, or subscribe. Discussions of Music, Healing, and Consciousness is a practice of spontaneity, and we welcome your comments, ideas, and questions. There are ways to connect with us in the show notes, so let us hear from you. Until next time, this is Bill Protzmann along with Chris Noble, wishing you great musical health. Samara Huchaya.